Hi there everybody, and welcome to this video. Today we're going to talk about security within Business Central. So we're going to focus on permission sets and what we can do within BC to limit access to different areas. So there are two elements here. We need to talk about permission sets, which are defined and set up in BC, and then they're set up against users. These permission sets can control the level of access that a user has within Business Central, so literally the tables and pages and the functions that they can run. But also regarding permissions and access rights in BC, we have the type of license which a user is applied. Now that obviously sits above the permission sets, so we can't control that from within BC. But a user can be assigned a license in the Microsoft 365 Administration Center, and you have a number of different licenses. So you have a team member license, which gives you read access to all tables in BC. You can insert into some tables as well. You can have an essential user license, which gives you insert access to every table. You can do pretty much anything you want to. And then you have a premium license, which gives you access to the service and manufacturing module. But we'll do another video on those. Just wanted to talk through those license types. So let's focus on today. So it's going to be permission sets that we're going to talk through. So I'm going to search for a page here using the search function called permission sets. And what is a permission set? Well, it's a group of permissions which has been created on Business Central, and a permission set can be defined and assigned to a user, and it will give them their level of access within Business Central. So I'm just on the permission set screen up here, and we've got a few permission sets here. I'm just going to run through the different types. So we've got a few here that are user defined. So you've got my vendor limited, vendor full, and COA permission sets, which are user defined, and then I've got some which are system defined. So difference between these are that the system type permission sets are provided by Microsoft as part of the BC package, so we can't change those in any way. We can just assign those to users. But the user-defined ones are set up by us, so we can set those up and change them as we wish. So what is a permission set? Well, let me just go to one of our example permission sets here. So I'm going to take one of the system permission sets here, and we're going to go to D365 accounts receivable. So this permission set is for the accounts receivable module. And underneath the permission set, I'm just going to hit permissions up at the top here. And what this will do is it will show me the permissions related to the D365 accounts receivable permission set. Now, remember I mentioned we can't edit this. So even if I put the page into edit mode, I can't change any of the setup here. So this is out of the box permissions, which I can't modify. Now, let me just talk through one of the lines here and sort of how this works. So in the permissions section of this page, we've got a number of different objects. So what is an object? Well, it's a table, it's a code unit, it's a page, it's an entity within Business Central that we can access or not access based on our permissions. So for example here, the line that I'm on is for object ID 38, and that's table data, so table 38, it's the purchase header table. And if I move across the page here, we've got some different actions. So we can either read table 38, we can insert into, we can modify, we can delete on that particular table. So let me just talk through these actions. So where we've got yes set as the value in this particular field, that means we can perform that action. So we can read the purchase header table. We can also use the indirect option in this page. So the indirect option means that the user can't directly visit the purchase header page and insert into that, but if a routine needs to run in the background that will update the purchase header table, it will indirectly be able to insert into that table. And the same goes here for modify and delete. If I just come down here to table data 120, which is the purchase receipt header, you'll notice we've got some blank options here underneath modify, delete and read. So where there's a blank option set against a table and an action, so the read action here on the purchase receipt header table 120 is blank, that basically means we don't have access to do that particular action. So as part of the D365 accounts receivable permission set, we do not have read access to table 120, the purchase receipt header. And there are some other actions here which we haven't spoken through yet. So there's the execute permission, so you can perform an execute on a number of different objects. So you wouldn't execute a table, but you would execute a page or a code unit. So I'll show you guys a little bit more on that later. And the same for a security filter, we'll run through a little bit later, but you can use a security filter to set up record level security within Business Central. And let me just come down to the lower part of the page here, and this just gives you an idea of the permission sets included within this particular permission set. So the D365 accounts receivable permission set is made up of these permission sets here, and on the right hand side here I can drop down and I can see a little bit more details on that. So once we've set up a permission set, what we can go ahead and do is we can assign that permission set to a user. You do have some areas on this particular page which do make your life a little bit easier. So if I just focus on the right hand side here in the fact box area, it tells us the permissions for the permission set that we're currently on. So this little fact box shows me all the permission sets based on my record that I've got highlighted, which is the D365 accounts receivable. It also tells me the included permission sets as part of this record as well. And if I scroll down a little bit here, I can also see the users that are assigned this particular permission set. And of course, I can move up and down the page. If I move to one of my user defined ones, I can see that we have a user assigned on that permission set. So some of the other functions you can do is you can import and export permission sets. So if we wanted to export our user defined ones, let's say from a sandbox environment to a production environment, we could do that using these functions here. And we can also use the copy permission set function to copy the permission sets from one permission set to another. And I do have some nice tools up here. If I come across to related permissions, I can view permission sets by user, by security group, and any conflicts as well. So if I just bring up the user one to very quickly show you, brings up a matrix page where it shows me my permission sets on the left hand side here, and it gives me a list of all my environment users across the top here in the columns, and I can tick or untick here if I want to assign or unassign that particular permission set. So in this example, automate exec for user Alicia T, and I can just tick it there as well. So it's a nice overview, just shows us how we can access what user has what permissions. So another way you can do this is if I go to my user card, so I'm just going to come back and search for a page called users. And on the user card, if I go to my user, my system administrator user, we can see that in the user permission sets, I've got a permission set super. If I scroll one to the right here, I can see I'm now on username Alan S, who is Alan Steiner, and Alan has 3 permission sets assigned. So he's got the login permission set, he's got the vendor limited permission set, and the COA or the chart of accounts permission set. Now, let me just step back to my user. So I'm logged in as the system administrator. Just at the top right here, I can see I'm logged in as the system administrator user, and I have a super permission set. So we didn't run through this one earlier when we were on the permission set screen, but I'm just going to show you now. If I go to the record here in the user permission set section and just click permissions, this shows me all of the permissions that the super permission set has. So it's the same page that we were on before, and it shows me that the super system permission set is made up of these permission sets, which basically give me access to everything within Business Central. So there are no limitations if you're a super user, and it's recommended to have at least one, maybe 2 or 3 super permissions users within your Business Central environment. Now, just for the purposes of this demo, what I've done is I've logged in as our other user, Alan Steiner, in another page here. So just before I go to the other page, I want to show you that Alan has different permissions to my login. So Alan has COA, login, and vendor limited permissions. And I just want to compare our home screens because permission sets are very much linked into profiles. So there's another video on profiles that we've done which may be of interest, but I just want to show you the home screen for our user Alan Steiner. So I'll just focus on the top right here right now. I'm logged in as Alan Steiner here, and you can see the home screen is very limited for him. So he does have the same profile as my system administrator user. So if I go to my settings, we can see that Alan's role is a business manager evaluation role. But because of his permission sets, you'll notice that his role center, his home screen, is very limited. Now, if I just go back to our other window where we're logged in with the system administrator user, if I go back to my home screen, as you saw when we began the video, I have access to everything here. So I've got customers, vendors, items, bank accounts, chart of accounts. And if I go to my settings, I just want to show you that I also have the business manager evaluation role. So this is quite important because profiles and permission sets go hand in hand with each other, and it's up to us to decide, what the user interface should show, which is the profiles, versus what level of access the user should have, which is permission sets. But bear in mind here in this example, we both, myself and Alan, have the business manager evaluation profile, and as you can see, because of my permission sets, I can see customers, vendors, items, bank accounts, chart of accounts. But if I switch to Alan's screen, so I'm just on Alan's screen right now, he only has vendors up at the top here and purchasing up at the top here. Now, this is very important, as mentioned, when you're setting up users. So we need to ensure that users have the right profile, the right level of access. And one of the things that we can do with regards to the level of access is we can set security filters. And might get a little bit confusing here, sorry about that guys, but I've just jumped back into my system administrator login, and I want to go back to the permission sets here, and I just want to show you the security filter functionality. So here on one of my user defined permission sets, we've got some permissions for the vendor table, and I just want to click permissions here to show you the permission sets that come as part of that permission set. So as I mentioned before, we've got the table information here. So we've got table number 9, table number 23, table number 38, etc. And then we've got the read, insert, modify, delete, and execute permissions. Now, one of the things that I want to show you here is I'm on the table 23 here, and what I've got is a security filter applied here. So on the vendor table, I've applied a security filter. And in order to apply that security filter, what I've done is I've just clicked on the 3 dots here, or the assist edit, and I have added a new field here called purchaser code. And I've put a field filter here for EH. So what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm limiting access to the vendor table when a user is assigned this permission set, and they can only see vendor records where the purchaser code is assigned as EH. And you can put other filter criteria in here as well. So I can use my pipe character, I can use my not equal to, so I can use my standard Business Central filter criteria here as well. And to add another field, I can very simply just drill down, and I've got a lookup here to all of the fields on the vendor table, and I can filter by what I want to. But let's just demo this to you guys. So I've got a field number 29 assigned. I've got my purchaser code field, and we've filtered where the purchaser code is equal to EH. And what I'm going to do is just go back to the users and show you the permission set. So I'm currently logged in as the administrator user, and as we know, I am a super user. And if I go to the right, we can see here that Alan has the vendor limited permission set that we were just talking through. So if I go permissions, we can see here he's got the purchaser code EH security filter on the vendor table. And he has a few other permission sets, but this one's just to let him log in, and this is one for another part of the demo. But let me go back as my system administrator user into my vendor table, and I just want to show you in here that we just have one vendor where the purchaser code is EH. So if I scroll to the right here, we can see 20,000 doesn't have a purchaser code, 30,000 doesn't have a purchaser code, and just want to show you that none of them have a purchaser code. And in fact, what we can do just to prove the scenario is I'm not going to select EH on vendor 20,000. I'm going to select HR, so Helena Ray. So just to confirm, what we've done is on vendor 20,000, we've assigned purchaser code HR, and on vendor 10,000, we have purchaser code EH. Now, what I'm going to do is just jump back in as Alan here, and just going to show you up here that I'm now using Alan's login. And if I go to my vendors table as Alan, what we can see is that I can only see Fabricam Incorporated. Whereas with my super user login, I could see all of those other vendors. I can only see Fabricam here because we have the purchaser code assigned as EH. And you'll notice here, guys, I can't edit the vendor card with Alan because I've limited that permission. Remember, Alan only had read permission to the vendor table, but we can give him edit permission there if we need to. And just to prove this, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log back in as my system administrator here. So just on the top right here, just showing you that I'm logged in as system administrator again. And what we can do is we can just remove the purchaser code field here from vendor number 10,000. And what I'm going to do now is once again switch back to Alan Steiner, and I'm just going to hit refresh on this just because we've made a permission set change, and we should refresh once that's done. So I'm going to go into vendors, and what we can see now is there's nothing to show in this view. And the reason for that is because Alan's login only has access to those vendors where the purchaser code is set to EH, and we just removed the only vendor that had the purchaser code set to EH. And this really, guys, is how the security filter functionality works. So I guess it's worth mentioning here, you don't have to obviously use the security filter on the purchaser code table. It could be any field, something of a little bit more value to us, something that counts more towards our process. It's up to us on that one, but we have the ability there to use security filters. Now, one other important thing here is I'm just going to jump back and I'm going to change vendor number 10,000 with my system admin login to have purchaser code EH in there again. So I'm just going to jump back into Alan's login and I'm going to go home and refresh. So I'm just logged in as Alan again here, and I just want to show you now that I can see vendor number 10,000 again. And that's because with the system administrator user, I added in purchaser code EH again. Now, a really important consideration here when we're setting up permissions is if we assign multiple permissions to a user, which is absolutely possible, it's the most powerful permission applied to that user that is applied on that user's login. Now, what does this mean? Well, let me jump back into my system administrator login here. And what I'm going to do is go to our user list and I'm going to go to Alan Steiner. And as we know, we've been working with the limited vendor permission. So if I go to permissions here, we saw earlier that on the vendor table, we've got a security filter for purchaser code EH. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another permission set here. So I'm going to drill down and I'm going to come to the bottom of my list here and I'm going to add my vendor full permission set. So we've added a new permission set to our user Alan, and I just want to show you here that if I go to permissions, we now only have one line in this permission set for the vendor full permission set. It's object ID 23, which is the vendor table. However, unlike the limited vendor permission set, this permission set gives us access to read, insert, modify and delete, and also there is no security filter assigned. So that's quite important. There's no security filter assigned on this permission set. And now that I've changed Alan's permissions to add that vendor full permission set, what will happen when we log in as Alan? Well, I've just switched back to Alan's login here. I'm going to go refresh. And if I now go to vendors, you'll notice that I can see all of our vendors, okay? And the reason is because I have that other permission set assigned, which now also lets me modify my records. So see, I can make changes to this record, whereas before I couldn't do that. And I can see all of the other vendors because let me switch back to my system administrator login here, because on the vendor full permission set we don't have a security filter assigned. So it's just one to be careful of there, guys, just because if you're assigning multiple permission sets to a user, you just need to be careful that you're not overpowering an existing permission set and giving your user more access than they should have. So one to be careful with. Now, sticking to the user card here for Alan, one of the other things that I want to talk about is the company level permissions. So we assigned the vendor full permission set here to Alan, and I can, if I want to, also assign a company to that permission set. Now, I have 3 companies in this environment, so I've got Cronus UK, my company, and test company for demo. And what does this mean if I assign a company to a permission set on a user card? Well, all it means is that level of access right, or that permission set, is only assigned to the company that we have set on the particular user card here. So if you wanted, for example, a user to see one company in your Business Central environment but not another, you would assign a company level permission set here in this field. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is just something that we call the permissions recorder. So in order to demo this to you, what I'm going to do is just go to the COA, the Chart of Accounts permission set here, and I'm going to go to permissions. And as you can see in here, guys, right now we don't have any permission sets. So what I can do if I want to set up this permission set is I can manually start adding object IDs here. So I can say, for example, that the table data 15 for GL account, I want to add that in. And I'm going to say we have no insert, no modify, and no delete permission, but we do have read permission for that table. Then I can add the next line in here, so I can drill down here and I can say the payment terms, and I can do the same thing. So you get the idea, guys. I can build up my permission set using a manual, very manual process by adding in the tables here. Now, let me just delete these records, because if you want to, you can use the permissions recorder. So if I come up to the top on the permission set card here, so I go actions, record permissions, what I can press is start, and it will ask me, do you want to start the recording now? And I'm going to say yes. And what this effectively does is it puts Business Central into record mode, and it will literally record all of the actions that take place in this user session. So we have to be careful not to close this page down. So just on top of this page, I'm going to search for my chart of accounts here. So very simply, all I did is I searched for my chart of accounts. I'm going to go back and I'm going to go actions, record permissions, and stop. So then BC asks me, do you want to add the recorded permissions? I'm going to say yes. And what will happen is that all of the permissions for the action that I just did, which is I searched for the chart of accounts page, will be added into my permission set. So you can see here, I've got a number of different records added in here now. So you can see I added manually table number 15 and the GL account, and we assigned those permissions for just read but not insert, modify and delete. But the recorder has done that for us. Okay, and because that permission set is assigned to Alan Steiner, so I did that before the demo, he will now inherit those permissions. So what are the implications of this? Well, let me go back here to Alan's login. We're going to go to the home screen and I'm just going to refresh. So I just want to show you here that we are logged in as Alan Steiner now, and I have access now to the chart of accounts here. So remember, previously I could only see vendors, but now I can see chart of accounts on my actions menu here, and previously on my navigation menu here I could only see purchasing, but now I also see finance. So you're slowly starting to see more and more options as your permissions allow you to do so. And if I click into my chart of accounts, it very simply opens up my chart of accounts. Nice and easy. Now, one of the other things that I want to show you is some functionality which has been recently introduced to include or exclude objects. So I'm just logged back in as my system administrator here, and what I'm going to do is again go to our COA, our chart of accounts permission set, and I'm going to go into permissions. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go to the page 16, which is the chart of accounts, and notice I have execute permissions on this because you can't read, insert, modify or delete on a page. You can only execute a page. What I'm going to do to this record is I'm just going to say exclude page number 16 from my COA permission set. Okay, so we just changed the type field here to say exclude. Now, what are the implications of this? Well, let me jump back into Alan's login. So I'm just logged in as Alan again, and once again I'm going to refresh the screen, and what you'll see once again is the chart of accounts page has now disappeared. And just to make sure, I can't even search for chart of accounts either, so I have no access to that page whatsoever. Okay, and just one of the other things that I want to show you is the Role Explorer, which it won't be very useful here in Alan's login, but if I come up to the top here, to the right of my navigation menu, I've got this function here called the Role Explorer, and this basically shows me all of the pages that I have access to as part of my profile and my permission set. Now, obviously we only have access to the vendors table with Alan, so let me just show you that on my system administrator login. So I've just moved again to my system administrator, and let me go to my Role Explorer, and you can see here, let me just say explore more roles, and this is basically all of the pages that I have permission to within my Business Central environment. And I can also type find here as well. So if I type in vendors, what you'll see is you get these little points turn up to show you where you have the vendor search term. And here I can say payables, expand that, and it shows me my result. And equally across here on warehouse, I've got vendors as well. So it's just a cool function to search for a page within BC using the Role Explorer, but don't forget you also have the global search function for that as well. Now, final thing that I want to show you in this video is something fairly new. It was introduced as part of the Wave 1 update for 2023, and this is basically using security groups within Business Central. So what are security groups? Well, they are your AAD security groups. And the idea is you can set up a security group in Azure Active Directory, and you can then sync those to Business Central, and you can add permission sets to those security groups. Okay, so if I come into here, my search, and I'm just going to type in security groups, and what I can do is create a new security group. And this field here is going to look up the Azure Active Directory security groups that we have in our environment. So I'm just going to select all employees here, and I can change the code there if I want to, but I'm just going to leave that as the same. And what this will do is it will create a new security group for me called all employees. And if I go to members up at the top here, this is going to show me all the members of that security group. So remember, none of this configuration or the adding or deleting is done within Business Central. I can't make those changes here. This is done at Azure Active Directory level. So we can pull those security groups into Business Central, and what I can then do is assign a permission set at security group level. So I can drill down and I can just say super and OK. And what this means now is that the all employees security group has this list of members, as we saw earlier. It's got all these guys. And if I go to the permissions, every user within that security group has the super permission set. So we can use this to control the access within Business Central. And notice I also have my company here, so I can limit at company level based on security groups as well if I want to. So I think security groups, from my perspective, make sense to use them. It's a good tool, and I think it's an easier way to organize all of the users and their permission sets within BC. And that's everything I wanted to run through, so I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you.